Council Committee on Finance, May 26, 2020, Tuesday. We're going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Chairman Iglesias.
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Ryan.
Present.
Councilwoman Castillo.
Present.
Councilman Anthony. Absent. Councilman Taylor.
Here.
We have 4 present and 1 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So before we begin this evening's festivities, I hope everybody has took a moment yesterday, Memorial Day, to reflect upon the men and women in the armed services that have passed away fighting for this great country, who died for us so we could live today, who their family and friends, and at that time in the past wars, fighting tyranny, socialism, Nazism, fascism, and protecting our great American way of life. I hope everybody took a moment to reflect upon those men and women who gave their lives, as well as the men and women in today's armed services who are defending the rights of democracy in this great republic all for this country and all across the world. And tonight's finance meeting, I ask everybody to reflect upon that, to realize that we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing right now as we speak if it wasn't for the men and women who defend this great country. With that, Madam Clerk, I think we have to start. We're gonna start from a previous agenda, I believe, right? So we can start with the. I want to start with the Office of Economic Opportunity. We'll start with that one. But before I do that, I have some exhibits that need to be identified and entered into the record. So, committee members, if you could help along, we have an item identified as from the Finance Director, Sarah Severia, 101-909, Office of Economic Opportunity. It's a multi-page report, as people have been talking about, the infamous or famous 3-box reports attached to it. I'd like to identify it into the record as Exhibit B11. Can we make a motion to that?
So moved.
Second.
By Councilman Taylor. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that Councilwoman Anthony is present also.
So noted.
Next, I'd like to enter the record another item. The next item. It's another multi-page report from the Finance Director's Office entitled 101-212 Personnel. It's a multi-page. I would say it's a good 40 pages or so. And it has a 3-box report. I'd like to identify it as B15 and enter into the record as such. Do you have that motion?
Moved.
Second.
Vice Chair, Councilman Taylor. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have another item. It's a multi-page document. It's a PowerPoint presentation, it looks like. It's entitled Finance Committee Meeting, City of Providence, 6/2020. It's from the Mercer Group. It's a multi-page document. To identify it for the record as B16 and enter into the record as B16. May I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
By Councilman Taylor. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So let us start. If we can, we're going to start committee members. I'm going to start with the Office of Economic Opportunity. So why don't we first have who from the administration is going to be discussing this matter, and then we'll have them one by one get sworn in, Mr. Clerk. And
Mr. Chairman, I'm so sorry. May I ask a question?
Yes, Councilman Anthony, yes.
Thank you so much. I was just wondering if we have copies of what you just marked as exhibits. Are those included in on the website that we access, or?
Yes, if you go to that website,
Yep.
Mr.
Okay.
Sent you should see it in sequential order.
He also just sent an email.
And he just sent an email reiterating it, okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem. And I might add, everybody, I think, and I'm remiss, and I'm going to say it even beginning of this meeting, I want to thank the clerk's office, all the members over here that, they're working really hard to keep us organized and keep this public process of democracy moving forward. So I want to make a point to thank them again, and all council members to, at the right time to do so also. Let the record reflect that I think I see Councilwoman Miller present, and I see, of course, the treasurer present. I see Kenny Shiverini, the city solicitor, present. Gina Costa, internal auditor.
She's here. Just on the phone.
Gina Costa, internal auditor, is present. Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Mancini, who from the administration, I presume you're going to do the 3 box, but who from the administration is going to discuss this? And this one, let me go one by one, swear them in.
So, Mr. Chairman, this evening I'm joined by Finance Director Sarah Silveria, Deputy Finance Director Crystal Lindberg, on behalf of the Office of Economic Opportunity, Director Colleen Fonseca, on behalf of the Department of Human Resources, Director Emmanuel Echevarria, on behalf of the Benefits Office, Stacy Roberts, and we have Mr. Matthew Pukel, who is here representing Mercer, the city's medical self-insured actuary.
Okay. So, Mr. Clerk, could you...
Could you all please raise your right hand or swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your name and title one at a time as you begin speaking.
I do. Lawrence J. Mancini, Chief Financial Officer, City of Providence.
I do. Sarah Silveria, Finance Director, City of Providence.
Ms. Lindberg?
I do. Crystal Lindberg, Deputy Finance Director for the City of Providence.
Roberts? She's muted. All right, we'll go Ms. Fonseca.
Colleen Fonseca, Director of Workforce Development and Economic Opportunity.
Ms. Roberts?
I do. Stacy Roberts, Benefits Manager.
All right, Mr. Rotundo?
I do. Stephen Rotundo, Deputy Director for Human Resources.
Mr. Escovari?
I do. Emmanuel Echevarria, Director of Human Resources.
Mr. Pukel?
Pukel. I do. Matthew Pukel, Principal, Mercer Consulting.
Thank you all. So, Mr. Mancini, do you want to, we'll take up Exhibit B11 and go from there first?
I would, sir. Thank you very much. Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I was remiss in not identifying Mr. Rotunda, but he has self-identified and he has been duly sworn. Mr. Chairman, this is Department 101-909, Office of Economic Opportunity. This is not a revenue-generating department. As to expenditures, salaries for FY21 are budgeted at $423,460, a decrease of $57,474 from the FY20 budget. Benefits for the department are budgeted at $187,158, an increase of $9,500 over the FY20 budget. Services for fiscal year 21 are budgeted at $1,220,000, a decrease of $141,500 from the FY20 budget. Supplies, there is no supplies expense in this budget, and there are no capital expenses in this budget. Mr. Chairman, if you could move to page 46 of the 3-box report. Page 46 is basically a report that shows revenue. There is some revenue that was received in the FY20. It appears in the center box on the fiscal year 20 projected at $5,400. It's miscellaneous revenue. If there are no questions, I'll direct your attention to page 47. Page 47, starting in the left box, comparing the FY20 budget to the budget under consideration this evening, shows a decrease in salaries at $52,233. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, the director has informed me that in this budget, and she'll speak to it, there was an omission in the submission of the budget where a position that was requested to be funded and was in fact included in last year's budget, while it's in the ordinances, it was omitted from the personnel supplement, which is actually the instrument that feeds the budget appropriation. So, with due respect, the deputy's position was omitted from this budget. We will clean that up during the committee discussions, and we'll share that with this committee and as well as the internal auditor. Going to the next line item, salary temporaries, there is a reduction in the budget from FY20 of $5,500. Longevity has an increase of $259. Going past the benefits column, which is under the direction of non-departmental, fees not classified, has decreased this year for FY21 rather, by $140,000. Transportation of persons or training has been level funded at $3,000, as is miscellaneous professional fees level funded at $3,500, and miscellaneous expenses has been reduced by $1,500 from the prior year budget. Grant expenditures remained level funded at $250,000, and that basically completes the expenses and expenditures for FY21, Mr. Chairman. With that, I'd like to direct your attention to the center box, and we can discuss the current year versus the projection for the current year. It appears that for the current year, we will be slightly above budget on salaries at $21,394, basically a function of the attrition. For salaries temporaries, that amount is $29,768 above budget, as well as longevity is at budget at nearly at budget at $8,378. Moving past benefits and down to fees not classified. Fees not classified appear to be under budget by $10,025 at $1,089,975. Transportation of persons or training is projected to come in at $106, some $2,894 below budget. Miscellaneous professional services expected to be at $0 or $3,500 below budget. And miscellaneous expenses will come in at $77, some $4,923 below budget. Grant expenditures is expected to be at budget at $250,000. This completes the three-box report and the narrative. I welcome any questions, and the director is available to answer your questions as well.
Thank you. Who is the director of this?
Colleen Fonseca.
Okay, great. Okay. She's muted.
She's not muted.
Okay, great. Committee members, you have questions?
I'd like an explanation of the grant, $250,000. Could we get an explanation of that?
Yep.
Yes,
What's
that's
that all
the
about?
first source grant. Yep. So, Mr. Chairman, that represents the first source grant, and that grant is included regularly in this department because it represents the activities of Office of Opportunity. Ms. Fonseca can speak to that.
What is the first source grant? Wait, before you go, where did the first source grant come from? The first source grant. The grant from a private company or for a grant from grant writing? What is it?
It's an appropriation that's meant to assist the first source office with apprenticeship and training of Providence residents. Any entity that seeks and avails themselves to any benefit offered by the city of Providence, including its various loan programs or grant programs, any recipient of that is required to first use a Providence residents list known as First Source.
So,
and these funds.
So, but it's not the money doesn't come from a grant. It's the nomenclature that's been used. Right. So that I think that.
And may I say, Mr. Chairman and Madam Leader, this is an appropriation that has been in the city budget for more than a decade. I'm sure it's been there for longer than that.
So you want to tell us about this $250,000 and what's been going on with this?
I will defer to Ms. Fonseca.
Yeah.
So I apologize. I didn't hear that last statement. Well, in reference to the $250,000 in the grant expenditures.
Yeah, what do you do with it?
Okay.
What's it?
Yeah.
Why and what's the follow-up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As Mr. Mancini just mentioned, it's been about $250,000 for a decade, which pretty much comes out to a few $1 million. Tell us what this program, when the city dishes out this money, who gets it, when, why, et cetera. And then Vice Chair, I think, has a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So those dollars, the entire allocation is actually contracted out to Building Futures that does apprenticeship utilization analysis of the contracts to ensure that Providence residents and apprenticeships are being used. So those dollars are used to ensure that construction projects are in compliance, that Providence residents are appropriately being used as apprentices for those, and those dollars currently are contracted to go to Building Futures.
So do you get a report from Building Futures?
Yes, so we do receive reports from Building Futures very frequently. I would say at this point, we're likely receiving them monthly. They're given to our First Source director and First Source staff review those, as well as our First Source staff are also doing quarterly reports of all the employment of Providence residents, that all of the organizations that are receiving some type of benefits from the city and businesses are receiving, and those are published on our website in the city of Providence on a quarterly basis.
All right, so the $250,000 is the fee for the administration, which is, what's it called, Building Futures, is that what you just said?
Yes.
So we pay them $250,000, that's like their fee, right? And then their job is to do what?
Their job is to analyze and ensure that apprenticeships are being administered correctly, and that there are no issues or concerns with the apprenticeships.
So what apprenticeships? What do you mean? City run apprenticeships?
So this is apprenticeships for any type of construction or compliance that's happening across the city. So say, for example, there's a developer that comes in that receives a tax stabilization agreement. Building Futures then just analyzes once the construction is happening to ensure that the apprenticeships are being administered correctly, and those sorts of things.
So we pay $250,000 for them to, I still don't understand what you're saying. Do they end up taking, so these are privately run apprenticeship programs?
So these are like state-run apprenticeship programs. Building Futures has summer apprenticeship programs. It's really just to ensure that apprentices are being used that are Providence residents.
So is Building Futures running the apprenticeship programs too?
So they do also run apprenticeship programs, yes.
So they're monitoring themselves for us?
I would have to confer with our First Source team to confirm that detail. And I want to ensure I'm providing you with the most accurate information.
The First Source team.
So the First Source team consists of 3 staff, led by Natalie Lopes, the director of First Source, a senior compliance officer, Yesenia Brito, and another senior compliance officer, Anastasia Williams.
Okay, so you don't know what's going on with this program then? You don't know that answer?
I do know what the program is doing and completing. I just want to confirm with our staff whether or not Building Futures is also doing compliance on the apprenticeships that are being run by them as well.
Okay, so what happens when they're doing so they're the hired compliance officer for the city on all the apprenticeship programs?
So the compliance officers really work on ensuring that the folks that have received tax stabilization agreements are hiring Providence residents. So not as much like the work and function of our senior compliance officers isn't as much on the apprenticeships as it is connecting folks that receive dollars from the city, as an example, tax stabilization agreements, connecting those employers with Providence residents, and also collecting data on a quarterly basis of how many Providence residents are being hired every quarter by these entities that are receiving any type of benefits or resources from the city of Providence.
So how many Providence residents are being hired per quarter then?
So I would have to double check the latest. We did recently upload our latest compliance report to our website.
Okay, how about last year?
Just give me one moment. I can pull that up for you.
Sure.
All right, so last year, there were 643 Providence residents that were hired.
And who hired them? In the city of
So it was a
Providence?
variety. No, so those were all the private companies that have tax stabilization agreements that hired them. So that really, it differs and it really depends. But it was, we did not, the city of Providence did not hire any of those residents. Those are all residents that were privately employed either by like Charter Care, the hospitals, et cetera.
Charter Care, who else? Who else? So you're saying 600 people were hired last year by companies in general or companies that have some connection with the city? And if so, what kind of connection?
So these are all employers that have connections to the city. And this includes entities that receive tax stabilization agreements or receive any CDBG dollars.
Okay. So do they have the breakdown of what companies and how many employees, and are they full or part-time?
So we do have that information available, and we do publish that on our website on a quarterly basis.
No, I appreciate that, but do you have it with you now?
I could certainly pull that up for you, absolutely.
So while you're pulling that up, the question, we allocated $250,000 for that. To date, I guess only about $112,000 has been spent to build RI. So what are you planning on doing with the rest of the money? The $138,000?
Yes. So with the remaining dollars, our first source team currently is in the process of working with the law department to create a no-cost extension for Building Futures for next year to continue to do the apprenticeship utilization. Also, we are still awaiting an invoice from Building Futures.
You're rolling it forward? Sorry. Your intent is to roll that money forward to next year's budget?
That can't be done.
So that can't be done. So hang on a second. Ms. Fonseca, present right now, the city's been shut down for 3 months, right? How many invoices, how much the fiscal year is almost over in a few weeks. How much money is outstanding that you believe is owed to Building Futures? And how are they billing us for the past 3 months? You know what I'm saying? How's it go? Do they bill us per month? Is that the deal?
So they do not bill us per month. I would have to double check and confirm with our director of First Source on how frequently we are being invoiced by Building Futures and what the remaining balance currently is.
Are you the director of this department?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Just, traditionally, a director, especially of such a small department, you should know these things pretty well. Just, it's not a very big, how big is your department? How many people do you supervise?
Less than 10.
Right. You should kind of really know how long you've been doing this, how long you had this position, Ms. Fonseca?
I've had this position since the middle of February.
Okay, so it's relatively new, right? Where were you before?
So I was the Deputy of Economic Opportunity.
Okay. So I think what it is that it's important that you should know these things really well. You should know what these other divisions are doing, what they're doing with the money. How long you been in this department itself? A couple of years?
So I've been with the department since November of 2019.
Okay. So you were the deputy in November 2019?
Yes.
And where were you before that?
Previous to that, I was at the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department in Boston as the Deputy of External Affairs.
Okay, good. So it's important, I think, that you know what your folks are doing and what your budget's doing, especially during difficult budget times, So we need to know what's happening with that amount of money. You can't roll the money forward. You mentioned the law department's doing. What's the law department doing? I don't understand what's that. The law department help us out, Professor Cheverini?
Yeah, I'm not aware, Mr. Chair. I mean, I certainly will inquire of the other individuals in my office who may have some connection, maybe Miss Southgate, but it's not something that I'm aware of.
So we need to get a handle on that. Internal auditor, are you on the line? Internal auditor?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you please
Can I
find out?
I'd like to make a comment about the $250,000. By ordinance, the city is supposed to be funding the first source program $250,000 a year. Now, an opinion went to the solicitor's office, which we did get back, saying that yes, we have to contribute $250. It was never clarified if that included personnel or not. If it does include personnel, we can decrease that line item.
Okay. So
additionally,
if they're carrying over that substantial amount of money, then you need to adjust it, and get whatever. Do we have Madam Director Fonseca, do you have a contract with Building Futures RI?
Yes, so we do have a contract with Building Futures that is set to expire this year at the end of this fiscal year, which is why our First Source team has begun to engage with the law department on a no-cost extension, just to ensure that they would have a contract in place after this fiscal year is over.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What's the value of the contract? Is it just they bill as much as they want, it's billable hours? How do they?
No, so
they're topped off at X. Can you tell us?
Yeah, so it is capped at $250,000.
So, Madam Internal Auditor, Ms. Fonseca is saying the contract's at $250,000 a year. So you need to check that out. I don't understand that. You know?
okay, I will. I'll look at the past.
Because what you're saying one thing and she's saying another thing. It seems like.
Fiscal year 19, it was 157,000.
Yep, I think you're probably right, Madam. Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Cheverini?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I need you to get that contract to the Internal Auditor by tomorrow morning, please.
Certainly.
Okay? And thank you.
Okay.
Where are we? Okay. Madam Chair, did you have a follow-up on that question, Madam Vice Chair?
Could I just, I was trying to listen intently to a description of what Building Futures was providing for that $250,000. And I don't really have it clear in my head. Could we just ask one more time? What are we getting for that money specifically? What are their duties? Is it strictly compliance for TSAs? What are they doing?
So it is compliance for folks that have TSAs. Yes, that is correct. It is compliance in terms of like construction, making sure that they're just doing everything accurately. I think especially because Building Futures has expertise on the construction fields and industry, that is like a skill set that we do rely on them for, to provide us with that accurate information in terms of are these projects being done correctly, competently, and safely for employees that are working on the work sites as well.
Is the compliance obligation related to, so obviously there's a hiring requirement for Providence residents. Is there also any follow-up as to the length of time that the Providence resident is retained?
So yes, in our quarterly reports, that information is also quantified, yes.
Okay, do you have, can you give me the last year if it's top of mind for you, or if you can look at it, can you tell me what percentage of the workforce, the Providence workforce, stays, and for what period of time they're employed? Is it short-term employment? Is it 1 month? Is it one, quarter? Is it 1 year? What's the length of employment, and what percentage of the employment stays for any length of time?
Yes. So, Madam Speaker, Madam Leader, I would have to confirm that with our First Source team as well. I do want to ensure I'm providing you with the most up-to-date and accurate information.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm sure that our internal auditor will ask you follow-up questions relative to that, but she'll understand. She understands where I'm going, and she'll follow up with you accordingly. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm good on that topic.
Thank you. Can you explain the fees not classified of 1.1 mil, and then I guess you're projected to spend about close to that? What are fees not classified exactly?
Yes, so the fees not classified encompasses the One Providence for Youth Summer Jobs Program. And these dollars are really used and allocated. These are the dollars that are used for nonprofit community-based organizations. Last summer, we funded 13 organizations to administer various programs across the city of Providence, organizations like the Nonviolence Institute, AS220, Goodwill Industries. There's a whole variety of organizations that receive funding to run summer jobs. Also out of this $1.1 million is dollars that we use to do summer internship training programs. We, for the first time, did programs with Providence Police and Fire, working with young people to prepare them for careers in the police force and fire department. So we use those dollars to really do any and everything that encompasses and that helps support training young people for private-based employment and creating the next generation of the pipeline of city employees here in Providence.
That was well said. Can you give me a little more detail on that? Because I still don't know what that does, meaning more specifics. Exactly what? I'll give you an example. You give money to Fab Newport, right? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who is Fab Newport? Oh, excuse me, before I do that, 1 second. So City Solicitor Cheverini, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So the $250,000 contract that Director Fonseca is talking about, I have a question for you. Does that have to go out to bid, or can they actually do a non-competitive bid process purely and just keep on extending? Seems like the fiscal year is almost over, and then it seems like what she's portraying is that the law department is working to do something with them. I don't know if that's correct or not. So I need you to report on how do you go about not following the, what's those laws called again, Internal Auditor? What's those laws called? Treasurer?
Procurement?
What are those laws called? Those laws? Oh, procurement laws, right, procurement laws. I know there was something to it. So could you find out how they go about the procurement law aspect and how they're doing a direct hire?
Yeah, sure. It seems odd to me, but I don't know if there's an exception somewhere, but we certainly get you an answer.
But I believe Fab Newport does go to the Board of Contract and Supply.
No. I'm not talking about Fab Newport yet. I'm talking about the extension of the $250,000 contract. We'll get to Fab Newport. You have to follow the conversation. So, with that said, can you check with, can you check on that conversation about the non-competitive bid process? I'd like to understand that, okay?
Absolutely.
Now I'm going to go to Fab Newport. Can you tell me what Fab Newport is, Madam Director?
Yes, so Fab Newport is a nonprofit community-based organization that works with young people. For our program in particular, they were working with 20 young people, teaching them skills around communication, how to show up to the jobs, providing them with workforce development trainings, how to show up to interviews, how to speak articulately. For the first week of the program, they go through a work readiness, which is just preparing young people for what we would assume to be very simple things, such as how to pick up the phone, how to speak with folks, how to interview appropriately, how to show up on time, how to let your supervisor know.
Madam Director, can you hear me? Madam Director, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Before you give me that, where is Fab Newport located?
So Fab Newport is located in the city of Providence. Oh, well, actually, I
So-
apologize. So Fab Newport, they have a bunch of locations. One of them, their main office is in Newport, but they do run a program with us in partnership through the Providence Community Libraries.
No, that's a different, Fab Newport, I understand how you're kind of weaving that in there. Fab Newport is a Newport-based business?
They're a Newport-based nonprofit.
Okay, which means they don't show a profit, doesn't mean necessarily don't make a profit. So, but they're located in Newport, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so how many, how many people work in that Fab Newport business model?
So for the Office of Economic Opportunity, our program, we have 20 youth that work with them in the
No,
summertime.
that's not what I asked you. Fab Newport, the company called Fab Newport, and I know everybody puts the nonprofit. How many people work for Fab Newport, the actual Fab Newport company? Do you know? It's kind of like this. People work for, Amazon. I'm asking how many people work for Fab Newport? It's the same idea. Do you know how many people work for Fab Newport?
I currently do not know the total number of employees at Fab Newport, but I could certainly provide you with that information.
So, and they have something that's going on with so they get paid through the Providence Public Library services?
No, so they're paid by the Office of Economic Opportunity because Fab Newport runs a program called PVD Young Makers and Makerspace, which is young people that are going into the Providence Community Libraries.
We understand what the program is. Are you telling me there's no business in Providence that runs that kind of program? Did you guys put that out to bid? That
Yes.
specific type of program? And
Yes.
were they the only ones that bid on it?
So we do an open RFP process where we went out to bid, and
Madam Director, were they the only ones to bid on it? Were they the only ones to bid on it?
No, there are multiple organizations that bid on running summer
Was there
jobs programs.
any Providence-based organization that bid on it?
Yes.
Okay, so here's my question. What's the whole purpose of this program? To do what?
So the purpose of these programs is
No. What the whole overall purpose of your program is what? To get Providence residents working, right?
Yes.
So my question is, shouldn't you make a criteria that you try to make it a Providence-based business that we're hiring to train Providence residents to get jobs? Do you understand? You recognize what I'm saying? So if there were other people that bid on it, my question is that you're doing just the opposite. You're hiring people not living in Providence and businesses not in Providence. I'm just saying it would be nice if it was called Fab Providence that you hired. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not asking that now because I know Fab Newport now will change its name real quickly in order to address what we do in that game before. I just don't understand that.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman,
Good.
if I may, I would say the majority of the organizations that we fund are Providence-based. We have CAP of Providence.
Madam Director, I understand. Listen, I understand this defense mechanism, but for Fab Newport, it's not. Let's go next. Goodwill Industries. Where are they based out of?
So they're a New England-based organization, and they have an office in Providence.
For us. Good. So let me try another one. Comprehensive Action Program, Providence Work Experience. What do they do for us?
So they actually run two programs for us. One of them is running a jobs program for 6 weeks, training young people on how to create urban farms and create urban gardens. And the second is to actually provide young people with an internship-based experience. So for the first few weeks of the program, the young people are learning like very common skills that'll help them thrive in a workplace. And then they're actually placed with a private employer to do internships based on their interests.
Are all these companies, is it a year contract or is it, are all these companies, is it a yearly contract or is it a multi-year contract? How does it work?
So these contracts are for 1 year. Our period of performance begins in June, like usually June 29th until the end of August.
So these already were put out to bid? And
Yes.
For the state, okay. And, okay, let's go for Skills for Rhode Island's Future. Who is that exactly?
So Skills for Rhode Island's Future is a nonprofit organization based here in Providence, and they do a lot of workforce development trainings. They're actually a new program provider that we received for the first time this year. We're going to be running in partnership with them. They submitted a bid to do internship experiences, in particular for young people that are justice involved and are leaving the Rhode Island training schools or are court involved. So they're really going to be offering a program to really help those young people be better able to enter the workforce so that they'll be less likely to recommit crime and so that we can improve public safety across the city.
Okay. AS220?
Yes, so AS220 is an arts organization also based in the city of Providence. And with our program, they're doing a week of work readiness at the beginning and preparing young people for careers in the art field.
Right, and I think the vice chair was asking, can we get a list of how much, do we get a list of how much your organization gets? Right, we need to
Yes,
submit.
absolutely.
All right, and then how long each organization's been on? How many years? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So if you can get that, that'd be helpful. How do you guys, is it that when you did this as an open bid process, did all these organizations compete for the same, submit their application to the same bid, or was there specific bids for each one?
So there was, it was for one bid. We put in, we have three what we call program models that we put into one bid. So all of these programs did come in through a one bid process.
And then who does the evaluation of who gets the award?
Yeah, so the evaluation is actually done by a variety of folks. So this year it was done by some folks internally in the Office of Economic Opportunity, some folks that work at the Providence Public School Department, as well as some external partners, higher education partners, folks that have expertise in workforce development and education.
Okay, so that was the bid evaluation committee, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Was it a sealed bid?
It was, yes.
And do those, how many members of that bid committee?
I believe there were 8, but I can confirm that as well.
Okay. And tell me how that bid process works.
Yeah, so
how many bids were submitted in total?
So we received, we received 13 bids.
Okay. And so how many people do you have contact? What do you have?
Ooh, I apologize. We had 14 bids.
Okay, but you hired about 13 of the 14?
Yes.
Okay, so Did, the bid committee, everybody sign a conflict of interest form?
They did, yes.
Who is on, from the cities on this committee?
So from the city of Providence, we had the previous director of strategic partnerships, Jen Steinfeld, the youth employment coordinator through Workforce Solutions, Kadeem Leslie, Jillian Fain, the deputy of youth and education. That was, and myself.
So you said you had people from the Providence Community Library too on it, you said? Is that what you said?
No, we did not. We had folks from the Providence Public School Department.
Who from the Providence Public School Department?
J.L. Lopes, the director of family engagement.
Okay. Okay. And who else?
We also had Rebecca Weber, who is with the Cambridge Innovation Center.
And where's the Cambridge Innovation Center? Cambridge?
And there's they are based in Cambridge, but they also have a location on Dyer Street here in Providence.
Okay. And so pretty much they hired everybody practically who submitted a bid.
We did not. There were some bids. I think there were 2 that just did not meet the criteria. We do have a criteria, and based on points through 3 sections, and we require that through the bidding process and through the evaluation process, that organizations that scored above 70 points based on whoever was the least to most expensive would be funded based on how many dollars we had. There were 2 bids that were submitted that did not meet the 70-point threshold, and therefore we did not fund them.
So my statement that you hired practically everybody is wrong then. You hired 14, but not 2 of them. So I guess my statement's incorrect, right? Is that what you're saying? You didn't hire practically everybody. That's what I said. You're saying you hired 14 out of 16, but you didn't hire mostly everybody. I just want to make sure I understand that. I want to make sure I understand if I'm communicating well. What I interpret that as, yes, you hired practically everybody except a couple, right? Who are the 2 that you didn't hire?
We did not hire an organization by the name of Billy Taylor House, and we did not, Goodwill Industries submitted 2 applications and 2 bids, 2 separate bids, and we did not fund one of their bids.
So I see Federal Hill House Service Learning. Did you hire them twice? Or you hired them once?
So we technically hired them twice because in our RFP, we have 3 different program models. Different organizations such as Federal Hill House, they submitted a bid for 2 of our program models. And their proposal was rigorous enough that we did fund them for both of the programs that they did propose to the Board of Contract and Supply.
Okay. So you hired them twice. All right. Okay. Let me get that list. And then, Mr. Solicitor, can you go through that process and report to us next meeting on how they did that bid process? Pull the scope of work, the hiring committee. Did you do it as a pre-qualification, like you qualified who you wanted, and then, or is it just you said, okay, we're hiring you, and then you guys decided how much money to give them? And the bids, Madam Director, they say we're looking for $100,000, or how do they submit the bids at value point?
Yeah, so we do not pre-qualify folks. What we do is we provide a list of many organizations that we know are just doing youth development work or have submitted bids previously. We submit that list to the Board of Contract and Supply, and they notify all of those organizations as well as publicize that the City of Providence is looking for organizations to administer the summer jobs program. We do advertise very widely. We do not disqualify folks for any reason prior to the bidding process. We also have a pre-bid conference so that any external organization that hears of the program and has questions, that every organization that's interested has a fair chance to receive accurate and up-to-date information.
So you kind of mentioned two different things. You said, they also administer the jobs program, these folks?
Yeah, so these are the selected organizations that are administering the summer jobs programs.
Oh, so I thought they were doing training, but you're telling me that they're doing jobs program instead. Because you just said it was about, so what are they doing exactly?
So they're really two to three different models. So our first model is service learning. So that program is more training based, where it's really training, especially in particular, younger youth around just workplace norms, how to show up for a job interview, how to present yourself, how to retain employment, and how to really find a career and industry that works for you and your skill sets. And then we also have work experience internships, which are more like the structured internships where young people are being placed, where they're being trained in the beginning of the program and then placed at an internship site. So we actually do both through our city summer jobs program. We do training and internships.
Okay, so so part of this thing is these people are hiring people. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, yes.
So how many people, so out of the money, how many people are being hired? So now you're kind of to another element there, right? So are they hiring just for the summer? Is that what they're doing?
Yes,
Like
they
Fab
are
Newport?
hired for the summer.
So how many people will they hire?
So for this summer, we have through the nonprofit partners, they're going to be hiring 363 young people.
Okay, so, I mean, is that their own normal hiring, or is the city taking credit for like the nonprofit's own hiring and saying, oh, they're hiring this, or they're hiring 300 people that the city's funding specifically?
So the nonprofit organizations are hiring young people, and then the city of Providence reimburses them for the programs.
So how many? So is the city of Providence paying for 300 employees, yes or no?
Yes, we are reimbursing the nonprofits for those 300 plus employees.
And how much is that 300 people? How much does that cost?
So it's approximately $750,000.
So 300 people. So let me get this straight. So they're paying them $2,500?
So on average, our young people receive $1,100 and upwards of that in the summertime. The rest of the dollars are used for like staff support, training, any like presentations that are being done, transportation, any fees associated with the program itself.
So, okay. So when I see this, right? So some of these companies are making a greater profit margin than others, correct? Madam Director?
It would certainly depend on the program in place.
Well, the program, on the program in place, I don't, they seem to be a very eclectic thing. I get it, I get what you're trying to do. The question is, how much money is each child guaranteed? How's that sound? Let me start off with that question. Out of 300 children, you're saying those 300 kids are going to be paid by the city of Providence. That's the first thing. Check that box off. How much money is each child guaranteed for this summer?
So each youth is guaranteed. Each youth is guaranteed anywhere. It really depends on how many hours they work, but they're guaranteed upwards of $1,000 a summer.
$1,000. So they all guaranteed. Okay. So, all right. Are they children or are they adults?
So they really are wide in variety. We start as young as 14 and go up as old as 24.
Okay, so out of this group of 300, how many are 14? How many are 15? You tell me, what 14-year-old kids? These organizations hiring 14-year-old kids, children?
Yes, some of them do. If they've put in their proposal and they have the organizational capacity to run programs for that age group, they do, yes. It really fluctuates from year to year.
So how many last year? Let's try last year then, how's that? What was the age group?
Just give me one moment, I can pull up that information for you, Mr.
Sure,
Chairman.
that'd be good.
Okay, so we did not aggregate our data based on age categories, but I will say it might take me a little bit longer to get you the exact number for 14 to 15-year-olds, but I will say that approximately last year, 403 students were high school students. So those are young people that are anywhere from 14 to 18 years old. But I can provide through the internal auditor
There were 400 plus people hired last year, that's what you're saying now?
Correct.
Out of this program? And the same price point of 750,000?
Last year, our program also had some grant funding through the state as well to administer the program, which we did not have this summer.
Okay. All right. You have some work to do. Mr. Mancini, did you say you're going to add a deputy director position here on top of the org chart that has a director of workforce, another director? Is that right? You're going to add a deputy, you want to add a deputy director? Is this correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the deputy director's position was omitted inadvertently from the personnel supplement, but it is in the class and compensation ordinance.
Okay. So, and that deputy director person would actually be above the director per source? Is that right?
I beg your pardon, can you repeat the question?
What is the organizational chart? Is it director of workforce, then the deputy director, and then director of first source, and then et cetera, is that right?
No, the deputy director, along with the director of first source and the MBE, WE outreach, along with the small business development director, all report to the director of workforce development and economic opportunity, Ms. Fonseca.
So we have a director of workforce, a director of first source, a director of WBE, and a director of small businesses. And then you want to hire a deputy director?
That is correct.
All right. Internal audit, identify that position. I mean, you got 4 directors in that unit. Everybody's a director.
And they have 4 distinct responsibilities, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't say they don't have 4 distinct responsibilities, but usually usually the way it works is you have a director of a department, then you have 4 deputy directors for the 4 distinct units. You don't have a director and directors. Usually you have directors, you're all directors, right? And the other thing is, your pay scale is all out of whack. So, I mean, you got one director making, and I guess that director's making more because they actually have a couple of people under them. The other 2 directors is just them alone. So, I mean, all right, I'm not gonna. So, Madam Auditor, just identify that position, please.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Chair,
Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
did we get a job description for that position to understand what it is they're going to be doing?
I didn't. Do you have a job description, Madam Director?
Ms. Fonseca.
Yes, we do have a job description for that position.
All right. And that job position's been empty for how long? Since you left it?
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
can we understand what the job does? I don't have a job description in front of me. What does the position do? What is the position responsible for?
Yeah, so the major responsibility for that position is to administer the summer jobs program. As you can see on the organizational chart, there are no youth staff, no youth coordinators of that sort to administer the youth summer jobs program. That was the bulk of the work that I was doing in that position, was administering the $1.1 million for the summer jobs program. So that is the bulk of what that position does, in addition to providing support for grant opportunities and all of the various functions that are happening within the office as well.
Okay, thank you.
If I may say, that seems to be kind of odd because all you're doing is you're putting out a bid, putting out a scope, you're receiving bids, and then you're awarding it to a bunch of groups who are doing the job. So that makes no sense to me. This seems to be a ministerial thing, because you're not that job seems to be redundant. It doesn't make any sense. Because if that's the case, then why do we have all these organizations doing that job?
Yeah, so previous to the COVID-19 crisis, there were various other programs that were being administered and run out of the Office of Economic Opportunity in relation to summer jobs. So there was for example, the public safety program, as well as we were also running the city-based internships where there were over 80 youth that were between 444 Westminster and City Hall that were working. So that person was really responsible for weekly checking in, making sure all of those interns were submitting their timesheets, coordinating with department directors, making sure that there were workshops on financial literacy and any supportive services that any of those young people needed. So in previous years, the program has been much more than just going out to bid for those programmatic job internship programs. There were many.
But that was previous years. That's not now. So it's kind of like talking about like in the past we had X, but now we're going to pretend it doesn't exist. So that was in the past, the previous years. You're talking about something that's not relevant anymore. The bottom line is, you're talking about a job that right now is redundant, since you hire these companies to do whatever supposedly they're supposed to be doing, and the rest of it's just ministerial work. So I'm just throwing it. I'm not going to belabor that conversation. All right. Can you explain to me? Why do you have money for temporary employees?
Yeah, so the temporary salaries are for the interns that come into the city of Providence, such as the city interns, as well as last year we piloted a new program in partnership with the Providence Public School Department, where we provided young people with stipends to attend summer school, because we did recognize that there were many young people that had to choose between either completing summer school and advancing another grade level or having a summer job. So we used that line item to pay for those city interns, as well as young people that are receiving stipends through those summer learning partnerships.
So what do you mean young people? What's the age group?
So those young people in particular, they tend to be from 16 all the way up to 24.
Okay, do you have the breakdown of that?
So I do also have that breakdown across our entire program. I could provide it to you more in detail just for those the temporary salary line item.
So what you're doing is you're paying people. So you may be paying a person who's 21, 22, 20, 24 years old. You're paying them to go to school, right?
No, so we are paying them to intern at the city of Providence.
You're giving them a stipend. You just said you're giving them a stipend, which means you're paying them to go to school.
So yes, for that pilot program, those stipends are only received if young people complete benchmarks for success. So it's a combination.
Madam Director, you're very good at what you're doing, but you're very good at what you're doing, but let me say to you. So therefore, you just said there's going to be a 21-year-old person that we're paying them to go to school. That's a fact, correct?
No,
you're
so
paying
for that.
Did you say or did you not say that people up to 24 years old are going to get a stipend to go to school? A stipend means pay, right? Is that what a stipend? Stipend means something else? I don't know. I could be wrong. Stipend means Red Sox tickets or a gift card. It means money, right? So yes or no? Are you paying adults a stipend, AKA money, to go to school? Yes or no?
No.
So the answer is no. So when I look at that program, there will be no one who is 18 above receiving a stipend in that program. Is that correct?
Correct. So that program in particular was 100 youth that were Providence Public School Department young people.
So, Madam Director, why did you just say, then it's not on the record, that the age group was from 16 to 24? So I need you to get your facts correct. You stated it was 16 to 24, not me. So the question is now, are you amending your statement for the record?
No, and I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I may have conveyed the information incorrectly. So these are two separate programs that are being charged out of the temporary salaries line item, one of which is the city internships with young people all the way from 16 to 24 that are interning at the city. And the second is young people, 100 or so young people that are PPSD students that are also engaged in summer learning.
Okay. And what are the how many kids, what's the age group for the summer learning? This is for the Providence School Department. Do we give the money to the Providence School Department?
So the city of Providence does, yes. The Office of Economic Opportunity does not give dollars to the Providence Public School Department. We only provided stipends for those 100 youth that participated in that particular program.
And is this a Providence School Department program?
So it is a program, a summer learning program in partnership with the district and the city of Providence.
Is it a Providence School Department program? Was the genesis from them?
So my understanding is the program has always been facilitated in partnership where the city and the district contribute an equal amount to administer the summer learning initiatives in the summer.
Madam Director, let me give you some advice. If you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know. That's an answer. So I'll ask again. Did the program originate from the Providence School Department, yes or no?
I do not know.
Very good, thank you. Can you please find out?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. All right. What's the remaining balance in the First Source Trust Fund?
Mr. Chairman, there is no First Source Trust Fund, to my knowledge.
Okay. Well, isn't there money that goes towards, isn't there money from the tax stabilization that goes towards something, or no? Am I misconstruing something?
There may be language that supports activities in selective TSAs. I'm not sure they all include that, but there is no provision that maintains a carry forward or any kind of reserve, particularly a trust. We've had that discussion with the law department, and the law department has opined that in administering the city budget, including providing other city services, including legal services, that the First Source funding can technically be assigned to the administrative functions of the city, operating the city budget, as well as the workforce of the First Source office. So we've shared that with the internal audit on previous occasions.
Okay. And does the director, so is Ms. Fonseca has two hats, is that correct, or one hat?
She is the director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, and she also has relations with the workforce development, yes.
Right. And the director of workforce development is? Who is director of workforce? Ms. Fonseca?
Yes.
Are you director of workforce solutions?
No, Mr. Chairman, the Director of Workforce Solutions is Stephen Boyle.
Okay, and who's the director of workforce development? Is that the name of that same director of workforce development? Is that their full title? What's the title of your department? Workforce development and economic opportunity. Is that what it's called?
So the office's name is Economic Opportunity, and my title is Director of Workforce Development and Economic Opportunity.
Okay, so where's the workforce development come from? I mean, if it's called should you be called the Director of Economic Opportunity? Why is it workforce development and economic opportunity? Is it another workforce development unit or department or location?
The reasoning for that position title is because I am also overseeing the workforce development programs that are administered through Workforce Solutions in addition to economic opportunity.
Okay, so you work for Workforce Solutions too?
Correct.
Okay, do you get paid by them?
I do not.
Right. Where's your pay from?
My pay comes from the mayor's office.
Okay. So your entire pay comes from there, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Mancini, what's the amount she gets paid? Is the title in the mayor's office?
Yes, it is.
Okay, how
Yes,
much?
and I don't have that schedule. I don't have that schedule in front of me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Ms.
All right.
Fonseca knows her salary, though. I'm sure she knows her salary. Does she not?
I do,
don't know.
yes.
And what is it?
It's approximately $75,000.
Okay. Okay. General Laura, do you have any questions?
No, sir, I don't. I just want to point out that the interns in that office are still being paid, yet 100% of them are being reported as not working at all.
Is that correct, Ms. Fonseca?
Not to my knowledge, there are only 2 or so interns that are still working at this time, and that is as a result of their internship programs.
General Laura, can you reconcile her statement and yours, please?
I'm only going by the report from Lawson as of the pay date, May 15th, but if there's no staff to oversee the interns, I don't know how they're working.
Madam Director?
So I am overseeing those interns. They've actually wrapped up their internships, and they just haven't been submitting hours the last few weeks.
Madam General Laura?
Okay.
I still don't know what that means. Madam Director, all your people at home at this time? Or
Yes,
the
they
last
are.
3 months? Okay. And are they teleworking?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay, they are. And what are they? How are they teleworking?
So they're completing all of their regular job duties as they would do at the office, just via their homes. And we do have like biweekly staff check-ins, and we have weekly check-ins as well, just to check on the status of their work plans and what kind of work that they've been doing.
Okay. So your statement for the record is that your staff is all home. They'll have computers?
They do, yes.
It's all connected to the city's computer system?
Yes.
And they're all working, was it 7 or 8 hours a day, times 5?
Correct.
Okay. And Madam Auditor, is that correct?
That's not how it was reported.
Please tell me how it was reported, Madam Auditor.
It was... I have 700, wrong department. I have 358.25 hours of not working
So, Madam
versus telecommunicating.
So, Madam Director, it seems that there's an inconsistency in your reporting process. So either they're not working or they are. The way it's been reported and paid out is majority of the city workers for the past 2 months are sitting home doing nothing and getting paid full pay. So can you please reconcile that, Madam Director? Which is it?
So our
you sign-
staff,
Do you sign their timesheets?
I have not since the crisis has started, no.
So you have no idea then? You have no idea, right? If you haven't signed the timesheets, you haven't seen it since the crisis, that's 3 months ago almost. So you have no idea what they're doing, correct?
I do know what our staff are doing. I just have not recently seen their timesheets to sign them.
Well, okay. Well, I would think that if your office is fully working, teleworking, you could be able to easily do that. So, are you muted? Do I mute her or is she muted herself? Okay. So you haven't seen their timesheets for 3 months. You haven't signed their timesheets for 3 months. But you're still attesting on the record that somehow you know what they're doing for the past 3 months. Is that correct? Is that right, Madam Director? Can she hear me?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. So either two things that happen. Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
I'm sorry to interrupt your train of thought there. I'm just looking at the personnel supplement, and I recognize there was the requested deputy director position is not in the personnel supplement under Office of Economic Opportunity, but the director's position is also not listed in there. So am I to assume that it's under the mayor's department?
That is correct.
Budgeted
That is
on?
correct.
So it's
That
budgeted
is
in the
correct.
mayor's, okay. Is there a reason why?
Wait, before Madam Vice Chair, I mean both positions now are budgeted in the mayor's department, Mr.
No,
Mancini?
sir. No, only the director.
Okay. All right. Sorry,
Why would the
Madam-
director be? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. So why wouldn't it be reflected in the department that supposedly reports to the director?
When the department was created, it was created without the benefit of it being approved in the department. At the time, was meant to be an overseer position as an adjunct to the mayor's office, and has continued that way as predominantly a policy position.
Okay, so this org chart then is really wrong. Are these directors direct reports to the Director of Workforce Development or dotted line? Do they operate independently? How do they function?
So Madam Leader, those positions do report to me as the Director of Workforce Development and Economic Opportunity.
But you report to the mayor and your position and salary is out of the mayor's budget, correct? Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini, since the director of First Source actually makes more money than even Ms. Fonseca, almost like $11,000, wouldn't it just been easier just to have that person be in charge of all those 3 units? Makes no, since they, by the way, they make the most, and fine, kudos to them, but they make more money than even the other 2 directors.
So, Mr. Chairman,
I mean, your organizational chart's chaotic, as well as your salary chart's chaotic.
So, Mr. Chairman, while this is a newer department, and some of these positions were reassigned over time as the need became more abundantly and more acutely aware that they would fall better under the direction of someone like Ms. Fonseca. Let's speak to the Director of First Source. That's a specialized skill set. That's a specialized set of knowledge that is retained by that long-term employee. And I think that knowledge, while she's a highly competent employee, I think that knowledge is best suited at First Source. Speaking to what I know. Ms. Fonseca?
No problem. Listen, Madam Internal Auditor, did you want to clarify something you said?
Yes, sir, but it was about temp, so if this line of questioning, let him continue. I'll circle back. Thank you.
All right, so can we just do this, Madam Director? Can you please put forward, we'll have you come back, when's the next finance meeting? Well, it's scheduled for the next finance meeting, and I need to come back. Will you have the matrix of all, besides the line of question we've already asked for Suma's questions, the matrix of what's going on in the first source group, the matrix and MBWB outreach, and matrix of small business. What's the deliverables? What have they been delivering? What have they been doing? What have they been accomplishing specifically? By the way, in real numbers and in real specifics, not the general mission statement. You know, it's like the goal is to spread rainbows and unicorns around Providence. I get that. Check that box off. What are the real numbers? What's really happening specifically? What's the real nuts and bolts? What's happening? And then we also want to, we're going to bring you back, we also want a complete breakdown of every single one of these organizations, who, what, where, when, and how, et cetera. And then Mr. Solicitor, we need you to break down this no bid process that Madam Director is about to embark upon, as well as how they proceeded in the bid process for this, whatever it's called, this job thing with all these organizations, which, if I might add, I find it completely, they range from almost like a low of like $1,400 per person to almost $3,100 per person. So either if you're the only guaranteed that some of these organizations are making a huge amount of profit, some are making a nominal profit. So I like to understand the criteria for the profit margin. You put a scope in saying you can only make only 5%, you can only do something, or is it just a complete free-for-all? Because every organization and their price points are all over the lot. And basically, you tell me it's a two-prong attack. So they all should have a similar thing going on. So that's my take. So we also want to know the enrollment and proposal, and then what enrollment really occurred, and who, what, and the actual age group, the actual ages, numbers. Okay. All right. So any other questions? I'm going to continue this line of questions to the next council meeting, next finance meeting. So the director could get a little brushed up on homework. Madam Vice Chair, can we have any questions?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm good. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to ask that if we can maybe continue this, we'll continue this organization to the next finance meeting.
Motion to continue? Do you need a motion?
I need a motion. Motion to continue. Second, discussion. Internal Law, do you have any final questions at this point, at least enlighten the director there so she can be prepared, Madam Internal Order?
My question was about the interns. Are they interns citywide, or is it just interns for OEO? Because why wouldn't they be charged to each department?
Madam Director, do you have an answer to that? Madam
So those interns are charged across the city. So they're not just interns that are reporting to our office and working in our office, but they are interns, for example, that worked on the Providence Police and Providence Fire Program. They're interns that are working in the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Department, across various departments in the city.
You keep track of all the interns? Madam Fonseca? You keep track of all the interns?
Yeah, so we do keep track of all of the interns that are being compensated out of our office. There is also a mayoral fellowship program, and there are some departments that have unpaid interns through like college partnerships that they have, and we do not oversee those interns.
Madam Auditor?
The 94,000, can you hear me?
Yes.
So the 94,000 covers citywide?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So all in favor to continue? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Guys, let's go to the next, and then, Ms. Fonseca will bring you back, and we can, we'll have, more conversation about your division. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, thank you. Well, thank you for participating. Next, shall we take up, I think it's personnel? All right. Mr. Mancini?
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is Department 101212, known as personnel, but it is the Department of Human Resources. This is not a revenue-generating department. As to expenditures, and starting with salaries for fiscal year 21 is budgeted at $1,250,948, representing a decrease of $59,204 over the FY20 budget. The decrease is due to a reorganization of staff in the department, along with increased attrition as the city plans to delay posting vacancies and will not be filling non-essential positions in FY21. Myself and Director Ecavaria will discuss with the committee in greater detail a reorganization that has been planned. Actually was expected to occur last year. Mr. Ecavaria's appointment occurred late in the season. The budget was almost nearly adopted. This was a continuation of that strategy. We'll discuss that in greater detail. Under benefits, the total budget benefits for FY21 are $861,649, an increase of $117,003 over the prior year budget. Services for this department are budgeted for FY21 at $545,868, an increase of $392,318 over the prior year budget. And this change, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, is due to increases in private contractors and miscellaneous expenses for the implementation of the following initiatives: applicant tracking system, third-party COBRA administrator, digitization efforts, and additional professional development for city staff. Supplies, there are no supplies expense budgeted for this department, and capital, there is no capital expenses associated with this budget. If I may, Mr. Chairman, directing your attention to page 23. Page 23 is meant to be a revenue page. There are some revenues that have been receipted this year in the projection column.
Madam Vice Chair, I'm stepping out for a moment. You have the column.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please
And
continue.
they
Mr.
represent,
Density.
thank you, Madam Leader, and they represent witness fees and fees associated with jury duty that are turned back in by city employees who in fact serve on jury duty during the year. Turning from page 23, Madam Leader, to page 24, and directing your attention to the left box, you'll note that salaries, as my narrative indicated, have a decrease of $50,202. Overtime is expected to remain nearly identical to the prior year, $2,876. Salary temps, the same thing, be level funded at $9,000. And longevity, a function of the workforce, is expected to decrease by $9,058. Moving through benefits and arriving at the operational expenses, postage has been budgeted at $6,000, a decrease of $1,000, and there's been no expense budgeted for advertising or dues or subscription. Both of those categories carried expense in FY20 as part of the 30% reduction attempt by this department. They have eliminated those expenses from consideration this year. Rentals not classified. This actually represents the lease on copy machine. There's a slight increase in that expense, budgeted at $240 increase. Legal expenses remained level funded at $25,000. Private contractors, as I had indicated in my narrative, will increase by $325,000, as will miscellaneous expenses increase by $70,000. And finally, on page 25, Madam Leader, stationery will not be expensed in the 21 budget. That completes the expenses for 21 versus 20. If I could direct your attention back to page 24 and moving to the center boxes, it appears that the salary line for 2020 will be below budget by approximately $50,000. Overtime will be reduced by $1,713. Salaries temporary will come in at probably around $3,200, a savings of $5,714, and longevity will be just about at or below budget. Skipping through benefits and going through operational expenses, postage expense this year is expected to be at around $11,359. That expense, Madam Leader, members of the committee, is mostly due to the additional mailings that the HR department was required to do this year with the advance of the new medical programs. HR sent out programs on the newly initiated HRA program and other aspects of HR management. Advertising and marketing should be at budget, around $750, as will dues and subscriptions. Rentals not classified is projected to be in the $11,000 or at budget range this year. Legal expenses will be close to budget, but below at this time at $23,456. Private contractors is expected to be at below budget at $86,129. And miscellaneous expenses will be slightly above budget. Overall, that group of expenses will be below budget by $3,356. And then finally, stationery expenses expected to be at or below budget at $487. This completes the narrative in the three-box report, and I welcome some questions along with the department director. Discuss.
Thank you. My initial question is relative to the 30% cut that you referenced.
Yep.
Could you explain that? So you achieved that 30% in you said advertising, marketing, is that correct? Explain the 30% cut. Explain how you achieved that.
So while departments, as you know, Madam Leader, were asked throughout the city to identify, if they could, 30% reductions in their expenditures, many departments were unable to do that. And so while they may not have achieved literally 30%, there were ways in which they felt that they could reduce operating expenses. In this case, in the case of HR, they felt that they could survive the year without dues and subscription expense, without any advertising in those line items, either based on their belief that the 21 budget will survive without those expenditures. And so that operational test was applied to their budget. It wasn't meant to be a strict 30% reduction.
So what are you giving up in dues and subscriptions to achieve that savings?
Director?
Dues and subscriptions, we are giving up some memberships. There was one to a regional health advisory group that I believe cost $2,500 in years past, in addition to some conferences and those sort of things that got booked in that line item.
Vice Chair, you good? After Vice Chair, then I have Councilman Taylor. Vice Chair?
I'm good, Mr. Chair. I was just going to have the director begin to walk us through the org chart, but I yield to Councilman Taylor, Chief Taylor. Thank you.
Chief Taylor, you have a question, sir?
I was actually going to ask about the Human Resources organizational chart. Is that what okay, so.
I was going there, but go ahead.
So Chief and Vice Chair, could I ask you the finances before we get the organizational chart?
Okay, well, let me back. Okay, I got more questions then.
So I have a question. Your budget for this year is $2,208,848, correct, Mr. Director?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And you're looking that you may come in $47,000 less potentially. But then your proposed budget goes up 18%, right, to 465. So your budget didn't get cut at all. Your proposed budget actually went up, right? Went up by 18%. So there were no, you achieved no cuts or changes, correct, Mr. Director?
We've cut in some areas, sir, and we have increased in others, and I'm happy to walk through those.
Right. I appreciate that. That's excellent. Let me tell you something. I gotta tell you something. The directors are getting better and better at the double speak. You really are. And just so you know, I'm not. It's difficult for me to follow along on this stuff. I recognize that I don't necessarily have the same level of expertise as all of you, and Donald on your ability to be so eloquent to explain a budget. You just do unbelievable. But your budget in total is on 18%. So your budget did not get cut at all. Is that correct? Is that a yes or no, Mr. Director?
Yes.
Right? You might have cut dues and prescriptions, but the reality is your budget went up. Okay? Just so you know, there was a director, and I use him all the time. I think it's one of the best examples of how well doublespeak directors do. We had a former finance director way back when, and there's an account with $11 million in it. And the account specifically said you have to have council approval before you spend any money out of it. So what happened is, as we're going through the budget discussions and hearings, I said to the director, I said, how much money's in the account? He said, oh, there's $11 million, Mr. Chairman. And then my intrepid internal auditor said, ask them how much cash is in the account. And I said, how much cash is in the account? He goes, cash? Well, there's no cash in the account. There's an IOU for that amount of money in that account. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what happened was, he was being factual but not being honest. Meaning, there was no money in the account, but if I didn't ask and I didn't use the word cash, they had no expectation or no sense that they were going to tell me, the public, that they spent and rated this account by $11 million without the approval of the council per law. So they went around it by saying, oh, there's an IOU in it. So the question, so just to understand that process. Hang on, Mr. Mancini. I have a question for the, I noticed private contractors went up. Private contractors went up from 92,000 to 417,000. Tell me what that is, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before Mr. Cavaria answers the question, may I say for the record, while I appreciate your historical recollection of a former finance director, let me be very clear about something. In my narrative this evening, before I even went into the tree box, I very plainly, openly, and directly explained that there would be an increase in the services line associated with the following changes: private contractors, miscellaneous, and they would include applicant tracking system, third-party COBRA administrator, digitization efforts, and additional professional development. Mr. Akavar did not say that there would be a 30% cut across the board. I said in an attempt to meet that activity in certain areas, there would be reductions. But I was clear also in indicating that this department would have changes in those services and the services that would be verified by the director, as well as a change in his organizational chart. So with due respect, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your historical reference, as I recall that as you do, but on behalf of this director, I think he should be given the opportunity to speak for his own budget. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini, and that's what we're going to try to do. Councilman Taylor, and then I have some more questions. Councilman Taylor.
Well, I was actually going to ask that same question that you asked, and I don't know if you got an answer because Larry kind of jumped in and I'm confused now. The private contractors, I was going to ask that same question, why it went up 352%.
Mr. Director, can you answer that question, sir?
Yes, I can. So we have proposed a few increases in that line item that we think will yield long-term savings for the city. One of them is a $40,000 investment in a COBRA third-party administrator. And I'm happy to answer any questions on these as I go on, but to answer your question succinctly, I'll go through my list. $125,000 to develop some workers' compensation systems digitization in HR. We believe these savings will also exceed the amount that we invest. About $80,000 for an applicant tracking system, which is an initiative that in conversations with council and council leadership over the last year, we've talked about the need to track our applicants and understand what the participation is in terms of diversity, depending on the position and the professional levels associated with our hiring practices. And there's a training fund for $100,000 for citywide professional development for non-union personnel and directors to help modernize and professionalize the management team of the city, especially in light of COVID-related operations. And then an additional $30,000 for training for the human resources team. A lot of these investments in system and process digitization are going to require additional professional development for our staff.
So you have the breakdown. Can you provide that breakdown by tomorrow morning?
I'm happy to.
Right. Now, before I get into the professional development, what does it's the personnel and HR department, correct?
Correct.
What exactly does your department do?
So our department administers basically the employee interface from job posting all the way to separation. So we draft job specs, we post jobs, we facilitate the hiring process, enroll in benefits, we administer the benefits for all employees citywide and retirees, including dental and voluntary benefits as well as health, in addition to overseeing the workers' compensation unit and staff that handle several professional aspects of internal workforce development, if you will, such as equal employment opportunity, things such as training and development for both leadership and frontline staff. And then we administer all sorts of leave and accreditation/certification compliance, such as CDL compliance, randomized drug tests for eligible CDL holders, family medical leave, military leave, et cetera. So it's a 20-person department, but it runs the entire gamut of
Shut
HR
up.
operations.
You can continue.
That concluded my answer, sir.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Okay. So has your staff been working for the past 3 months?
Our management staff has been fully activated and telecommuting at least 35 hours a week. Many of us have been working more than that. Our frontline staff have not been fully activated. They have been activated ad hoc and as certain requirements and processes determine whether or not they're needed to either come in or telecommute. A lot of our staff are not equipped to telecommute at this time because we lack the technology to do so.
Okay. And I asked some questions, but I'm gonna let Councilman Taylor has his hand up. Councilman Taylor, go ahead.
No problem. My next question was I lost it. Hold on.
While you're looking for that question, I just want to make sure I understand something, Director. Are you telling me during this entire 3 months, whether you have the laundry list for the past 3 months, for the entire city of Providence, who's identified as at home and not working but getting paid full time?
We have payroll records that reflect that data, yes.
I want you to provide that for the entire city for the past 3 months of each job and each individual. When I talk to different directors, some do, some don't, I don't know. We just listened to another director who just said she hasn't even seen she even signed the timesheets for the past 3 months. So I don't understand, how does that work? So people can get paid without the superior signing timesheets or approving them?
I'm not sure
Chairman,
what
I
the,
believe that.
Now, hang on, Mr. Meany.
Sorry,
This
so
is
I'm
probably his bailiwick. So I have a question for you. How are the folks in that unit for the past 3 months, right? Where the director stated on the record that she has not looked at them or approved them, but yet they're getting paid. Because for our records, they're getting paid and they're sitting home doing nothing. For her recollection, they're getting paid and doing something, but yet she doesn't view this stuff. So tell me, how does that work? How does that? Go ahead.
So I don't know definitively without inquiring with that department head, but my assumption would be one of few things, right? It could be a data processing error. It could be.
Oh, no, it's not that. Hold on. Let's talk about the 3 months that she has not reviewed her records. Do you run payroll?
I do not run payroll, sir.
And do you have any interaction with payroll?
I do have interactions with payroll, yes.
Okay, all right. But as the HR person, your job is to make sure the director's also following the appropriate HR processes, right?
Yes, and I can't speak to what the payroll processes are.
Okay, so Councilman Taylor, then Vice Chair. I still got more questions, but I'll go. Councilman Taylor, you ready?
Yes, I am. I wanted
Go ahead,
to
sir.
know the miscellaneous expenses went up 466%. What was that about? What's that about?
So that when I lumped in my explanation, I kind of did all of them. A portion of the miscellaneous expenses goes to staff onboarding expenses, such as onboarding meetings, trainings that we host currently for management. That's where I'm including some of the professionalization money for our internal HR staff to get up to speed with some of the systems process improvement that I'm doing. Let me see if I can find.
And that's $70,000 for that?
No, so that's $30,000 for the system related training that I'm proposing here. I can provide a full breakdown to the internal auditor tomorrow if you'd like.
And we didn't have any. Okay, let me ask you a question. How'd you get trained?
How did I get trained?
Yeah.
Through my professional experience, sir. So the one of the things that, had I joined a little bit sooner last year and had the opportunity to submit a budget for HR last year, I would have put in some professional development dollars. Currently, the city really doesn't have a professional development pool of money for its employees in mass. We don't really do a lot of training, and that's something that I feel particularly passionate about and would like to do, to make sure that our staff are ready and equipped to implement the policies that we're trying to put out, but also to be on the cutting edge of leadership.
So the people that are below you, you think that they need training, some type of training?
We definitely have staff that need additional professional development and training, whether it be in the realms of public speaking, improving their supervisory skills. Some technical competencies are also necessary as we're trying to get closer to a digital age. I'm also cognizant that we've had a workforce that hasn't necessarily benefited from a lot of traditional professional development like private companies do, or like other wealthier, like nonprofit and public service organizations have.
Okay. And you were from Innovation before, correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay. Can I get to the organizational chart? You want to wait on that, Chairman?
Vice Chair had a hand up.
I can wait.
I'll yield
Chairman.
to Chief Taylor. Go ahead, Chief Taylor.
Chief, before we get to the organizational chart, the treasurer had a question. You have a question about finances or the organizational chart, Mr. Treasurer?
It was about the essential and non-essential employees.
Okay, so why don't you ask that question and then we'll get to the organizational chart. Mr. Treasurer?
Right,
Treasurer
Director, can you explain, because we've had this conversation a number of times in these meetings, that there is no master list of essential and non-essential, that could change week to week based on reporting. Is that correct?
That is correct. If I can elaborate on that a little bit.
Please do.
Yes. So how we can determine whether or not during a pay period an employee's essential needs to be activated can be found in the payroll records. And I've supplied that to yourself and the internal auditor regularly around the previous week's payroll, if you will, or the previous pay period's payroll. There are pay codes that speak to essential personnel required and activated, and there are other pay codes that speak to personnel that have been involuntarily activated, voluntarily activated, or have not been activated. And so the terminology that I've used on this is whether or not someone is mission critical or not mission critical, meaning that if folks are needed at some point but not needed at another point, they can fluctuate from being critical to the objectives of the organization now and not critical to the objectives of the organization at another point in time.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to have that explained because we have been debating it back and forth. I think the majority of people thought that there was a master list out there of essential and non-essential employees.
The internal auditor has a follow-up question on that, internal auditor?
Hi, Emmanuel. What do you consider interns and temps?
Interns and temps, to me, would be non-essential personnel unless they're being activated for a mission critical purpose. I mean, I'd have to know specifically what type of...
If a temp is not reporting to work, how can they be getting paid?
Yeah, so that's something that we're having internal conversations on. We have asked department directors to confirm our list of temp and seasonal employees. We're also trying to determine what sunset periods have occurred for seasonal employees so we can offboard them. And we have actually been offboarding employees regularly who are no longer required for their seasonal assignments or their temporary assignments. And we're going to continue doing that in the coming weeks.
So why didn't you do it from the beginning? This has been going on for 3 months. Mr. Director, that's, what you just stated sounds like the proverbial, the horse, has left the barn. And so you're talking about these measures now, it's 3 months past. So why are we paying all that money the past 3 months? And how much money you're not gonna be able to get that money back. All right, so I have a question. What was your emergency HR action plan at the beginning of this process, this crisis, specifically? And what has it been since then? What has been your involvement since the beginning to the end? What was the emergency action personnel plan that you submitted to the mayor, if at all?
Yeah, so the Department of Human Resources involvement at the beginning of this was to understand the impact of this public health event on workforces and recommend a status on whether or not city operations should continue or cease or be closed to the public. And
So
as
did you go department by department, sir, on that recommendation?
No, what we identified was whether or not there's a risk in exposing employees and the public to each other. So my main focus was
check that's out. That's an obvious statement. We're talking about actually, the real question for HR would have been, you balance the health issues with, can your workforce or any of your workforce actually perform any work? That should have been your job. Clearly, whether or not the public or the employee would be exposed to health risk, that was a given. That wasn't much of a process. The process I'm asking you is, did HR go through the process of the health risk, of course, and then what operations could continue during this crisis, and how can they continue? Did you do that process? Yes or no?
Yes, I actively participated in that process, sir.
So you participated in the process. Did you write up a report on that process?
I did not write a report on that process.
So there is no record of how you guys went through that process. It just was a verbal conversation between you and who?
It was a series of communications between myself, some department directors, the director of operations. I also spoke with the respective chiefs of staff to the council and to the mayor, advising on policy and on policy changes. So a series of ongoing conversations, and then policy statements that we sent out via email to all staff.
Okay, those policy statements, do you have them all?
Yes.
Okay, can you collect them all and forward them to the internal auditor?
Yes.
Okay, so who made the call to have the city or majority of the city shut down, not work, get paid, stay home?
It was a collective call to cease public-facing operations for the safety of the public and our employees. I was done jointly by myself, members of the administration, and operational department heads.
Okay, so all of you decided that, right? That was your call, right? Okay, all right. So now with that said, where are we now? What's the latest policy iteration with the city's workforce?
So what we're exploring as we are monitoring how COVID-19 is advancing is a gradual reopening of city operations and what it would take to equip us to get to that point, be it public property related improvements, the procurement of masks and other personal protective equipment, and conversations with 1033, our largest partner, around the flexibility of our workforce and being able to be deployed and continuously activated more and more.
Okay, so nothing's happened, right? Nothing's changed. Like what's the plan? What's the plan? What's this week's plan? What's next week's plan? You understand what I'm talking about? Or you guys just kind of like going day by day, hour by hour, see how it plays out?
So the plan has been to phase this in. One, the procurement of PPE has become essential to ensuring that our workforce is ready to come back. Secondly, some of the public-facing offices.
Let's talk about that. Have you exceeded that one? Have you succeeded on that goal?
Yes, public property could probably communicate better on that than I can, sir, but yes, we have procured PPE for several staff, and we're working constantly to make sure that we get
Director,
more.
is that your role of your department, or are you just kind of reporting what maybe some other departments are doing that you think they're doing?
Well, sir, so it's really both. HR is not the department that goes out and acquires PPE, but we write policies that support that procurement, meaning that we have sent out a survey to all department heads on what PPE is required by department and have collected that data to provide to public property so they understand what the demand is. I've also made recommendations around some of the public facing offices and how they should be retrofitted to support staff coming in, but with social distancing measures, such as putting tape markers on the floor, plexiglass on counters, et cetera. So I have been active in all of those conversations and making recommendations along the way as I'm seeing what other employers are doing in response to COVID-19.
So when is all that going to happen? I mean, it is May, right? It is May, right? Right. So when's it all going to happen? When's it going to happen? When are you going to have what? Whatever. Like when are they going to have? You know, what units and stuff? Do you have a schedule of what units will be coming online and what month and what week?
That's something that as the building's physical improvements happen, I can develop. But right now, I do not have a plan for specifically what day, what units will get activated.
Okay, so you guys still have a lot of work to do. You're really behind the eight ball because, I mean, there's so many places, and I can name them that are far advanced than you guys are. For the past 3 months, since everybody's been home anyway. Now the unit itself, everybody doesn't. You don't even have IT capability. When you're telling me, you just said it for the record, don't have, which is just remarkable in my mind that your folks. By the way, you were in charge of innovation, right? How did you not innovate to make sure everybody has computers, at least in this unit? That may make any sense. You know? Go ahead.
Our management staff are all equipped to telecommute and have the technology. We have been activating our frontline workforce to come in as needed. Okay.
So, and I don't, whatever that means. Are you submitting any type of information to the Department of Labor Training at all this week?
We are, yes.
Please elaborate, please.
Yes, the city is exploring participation in a work share program that would allow us to offset some of the expenses, some of the payroll expenses, and balance those out with unemployment dollars for staff, which will provide the city savings, and then on the other end, it will also provide the staff a mechanism to continue being paid with avoiding layoffs.
Okay, so does that mean you're going to continue what you have now, which is people still staying home, getting paid, doing nothing, but then you're offsetting some of that expense. They'll continue to stay home, getting paid, doing nothing, but someone else is going to pay that portion, right?
It's important to note, Mr. Chairman, that we are trying to activate as much as the workforce week by week. And if I can provide context.
Mr. Director, I realize you keep saying that, but clearly the proof is in the pudding and nothing's happening. You can't give me a schedule. You can't give me a time frame. You can't even give me what units, what places, what's going on. You guys have 3 months. I don't know what you've been doing for 3 months. 3 months to put something together, okay? It's May. We're going into June. So it sounds like to me all you've done is figure out how to just have people stay home for the rest of the summer, stay home, get paid, and do nothing, at least a portion from the city side, and the other portion is going to come from whatever funding source. The question is, how can you guys in good conscience go to them, ask for that, when you not even have those people go to work and do anything? So the question is, where's your schedule to get whomever, or what you, maybe it's nobody, it's fine. You know, an honest answer says the city has no intention of bringing anybody back for another year. You can just say it. Right now, it's a quarter of the fiscal year, 3 months, right? Going to go 4 months, right? If that's the case, then you guys should just be honest with people, right? And if that's the case, and you're just gonna have people sit home, do nothing, and get paid, well, then the public has the right to know that, right? Is that fair to say? Director, you think so?
I think it'd be
Is it
fair
fair-
if that, it,
Is
sir,
it fair that
it-
the public should know this? Is it fair that the public should know this, yes or no?
it's fair for the public to know, yes.
Yes. So when will you guys finally have a schedule or an actual program of how you're going to get whatever portion of the workforce working and to do what? When's that going to actually happen? When's the due date? That doesn't make, when's the deliverable? I mean, no one's giving you a deliverable and said, I need a plan. No one's actually said, I need a plan by like Tuesday or Wednesday or nothing. Not one person's asked you for that. Mr. Director? Is that a yes or no question, sir?
No.
Okay.
We have been asked for plans, and we've developed plans as time has gone on. If I may just add, we've been working with individual departments to increase capacity, such as the Board of Licenses, such as DPW, such as the Water Supply Board has been working with us to ensure that we have mechanisms to bring employees to work in a safe capacity or allow them to telecommute.
Mr. Chair?
Vice Chair?
Just following up on your line of questioning, we've had countless departments come before us, and it has been stated over and over again that we have a certain percentage of the workforce that are not reporting to duty, and they are getting paid. So I'm assuming it's Human Resources responsibility to maintain oversight of who is reporting to work. So do you maintain those numbers on a regular basis, on a weekly basis? Do you look to see what percentage of the workforce is indeed engaged, working in a safe capacity, albeit, but do you maintain those numbers? And if not, who does?
Payroll maintains the records on who's activated and who's not, Madam Majority Leader.
You review payroll's records?
I'm sorry?
Do you review payroll's records? You're supposed to be putting a plan together to get people back to work. So are you reviewing payroll's numbers so that you know how you're doing?
Yes, I am reviewing payroll's numbers.
Okay, so you get a sense of what's happening. How often do you review those records? Weekly?
I usually request the payroll data after payroll has been submitted on a biweekly basis.
Bi-weekly, okay. So right now, can you tell this committee, and for the record, what percentage of the city's workforce is not working and getting paid in totality of the entire workforce? How many are not working and getting paid?
That's information that I don't know at this moment, but I can provide it to the internal auditor.
Okay, I wish you would, please. It makes tremendous sense to me that if you were managing that problem, that issue, that concern, and obviously human resource would be doing so for a number of reasons, not so much, not only efficiency of the workforce, but also for safety reasons. So I would think that you would know what those numbers are on, that should be something you look at every day, particularly in a crisis. And my next question is, since you don't have that top of mind, I would like to know what your goal is. What are you working toward? What percentage of the workforce will be back working based on the PPE that you're able to secure? Because your charge is to make sure our workforce is safe. So based on your ability to get PPE and looking at the work plans, what is your goal? And what percentage of the workforce is going to be back functioning, fully functioning, and what is the schedule? And you don't have to answer now because I guess you don't have those answers, or you don't have a plan in place at this point, but we would like to see that information.
And if I may answer, at least in part, the goal is always to ensure 100% of the workforce is able to be activated. There are some constraints to doing that. But that is our goal.
Great, but I'd like to see what the schedule is and how you're going to achieve that goal. Can I go to the org chart, Mr. Chair? Are we done?
Yes. Well, I don't know if we're really done, but let's go to the organizational chart because we're not getting very far on what's going on over here.
No, we're not, but I've got a few burning
know.
questions on the org chart.
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
We've got to be unfunded. There are a number of positions here. There's 3. I see one position on the benefits specialist has been moved and given a pay increase to another position. But I'm struggling to find the risk management specialist that apparently is being unfunded. So you've got a vacant position unfunded, you've got a benefits specialist unfunded, and you've got a risk management specialist unfunded but doesn't appear. So what happened to that person? Where are they? And what's going on with that role?
Yeah, so the Deputy Director of Human Resources for Benefits, which is to be unfunded, has been vacant since September. And it is a position that in this reorganization, the duties will be disseminated to other members, including myself. For the risk management specialist, Ms. Jennifer Conrad is retiring at the end of this fiscal year. So we are unfunding that position and replacing it with the workers' comp and safety supervisor. Part of the restructuring plan is that if the funding for the workers' comp digitization is approved, that we won't need someone with as high level content knowledge on workers' comp because we'll have a system that is able to analyze a lot of that data and provide necessary outputs for policy related decision making. And then on the benefits specialist end, that position used to serve more as an assistant to the Deputy Director of Human Resources in the Benefits Division. We are upgrading the responsibilities of that role to be more of a team lead for the operational core of HR, which includes positions such as a coordinator of employee benefits, personnel techs, and then the HR technicians, which we're hoping to create in this budget cycle.
So there's quite a few new funded positions, new positions. You had talked at length about, and you come from an IT innovation background, you had talked at length about your efforts to automate and bring technology enhancements to the HR department, but you're adding quite a few positions here. How many positions are you adding and why are you adding them?
So we're adding a few unfunded. We're adding 3 new positions and a couple are just changes in title only, if you will. What we're looking for is the statutory authority to be able to shift the operations of the department as vacancies occur so that we have the layout for the organization without having to impact many employees in changing. What I will point out is that these movements are meant to be cost-saving reorganizations. These are not to impact or to increase the salary line of the HR budget. So, for example, the 2 HR technician ones, we currently have a personnel tech and a benefits tech that those would be replacing. That's a change in title only, but the eventual goal of human resources, as I'm talking to 1033 about our collective bargaining staff, is to be able to cross-train the personnel and benefits division to achieve more synergy, but also to ensure the efficiency and predictability of services to all employees.
Are these all proposed new union positions?
The HR technicians 1, 2, and 3 are proposed union positions. The HR Generalist 1, Benefits Analyst, HR Systems Specialist, Workers' Comp and Safety Supervisor, and HR Coordinator are non-union designations.
Vice Chair? Yeah,
I don't have
follow-up
any-
question?
I don't have any more questions at this time. Just continue to digest this. Thank you.
So, who's doing workers' compensation now?
Workers' compensation is overseen by a combination of Jennifer Conrad, our risk management specialist, Deputy Director Stephen Rotundo, and then we have 2 claims examiners that run our self-insured workers' comp division.
And do you have a contractor or a private company that helps you with the workers' comp?
No, and that's part of what we're looking for in our digitization efforts, is to establish that relationship with someone who could help us do quality assurance and data integrity work.
Okay, so maybe you should look into that aspect, because it would seem to me you're creating redundant resources. If you hire a competent third party to help you with the workers' comp, you don't have to hire a body in-house. It's got to do with a service. And then who does the workers' comp? The solicitor does the workers' compensation, or you farm it out?
That gets, Stephen, can you answer that?
Question, we do the work, we do the workers' compensation in-house. We're a self-insured entity. We act like an insurance company. So we manage the cases in-house.
So that's Mr. Rotundo. Mr. Chevrini, is that correct? The solicitor's office, they handle the workers' compensation?
Yes and no. So there are 2 or 3 private attorneys who we had utilized their services. We were very pleased with the work. Some years ago, when Mayor Cicilline was in office, the city contracted with Beacon at the time to take over the workers' compensation program. However, there were issues with doing that because the city had to retain the union staff for processing the claims. Beacon had several attorneys, like I said, that we liked, who were very competent and had great experience with workers' compensation matters. Regularly, myself, Mr. Rotundo, and the outside attorneys will consult when there is a case that is a unique case or needs consulting. The law department will be involved with the overview or a settlement of a workers' compensation case.
So, Mr. Chevrini, you mentioned something interesting about union job of some sort. Was the positions that are now being defunded, the positions that were processing these workers' compensation claims, Mr. Director?
No, the position being defunded is not the workers' compensation claims examiner, no. It's a risk management specialist.
What's the union position that Mr. Chevrini is referring to as the union position that has to do the processing?
There are 2, the senior claims examiner and the junior claims examiner.
And they do workers' compensation?
Yes, they receive the intake of incident reports. They do the initial fact-finding. They put together communication to the attorneys representing the injured employee, and they maintain the medical records that we use.
Okay. And then what about they don't do it for the school side, right? Or do they?
No, they don't handle workers' comp for the school.
They do it for safety?
They do not. The public safety, the sworn personnel have their own workers' comp.
Mr. Chair, that's a statutory provision as well as it's IOD provision. So you don't see the numbers like you do. They're not litigated. They're more of a contractual issue if the department denies the IOD claim. So both police and fire have separate staff that handle the IOD claims, one for police and one for fire. And the school department has an attorney who is a law department attorney, Mr. Paul Gianfredo. I don't know if you remember Paul, but Paul handles the workers' compensation claims, and he's strictly housed at the Providence School Department.
And they just have one attorney doing the entire school department?
I believe it's just Paul, and there's a staff that assisted. I do not know how large that staff is, but I know Mr. Ruggiero does assist in providing guidance on workers' compensation claims. I don't believe he goes to court and actually litigates a claim. That would be more Mr. Gianfredo's expertise.
So I just want to follow up. There were questions that were submitted to you, Mr. Director, and I think Mr. Ancini from the internal auditor. Do you have those? Have you reported back on those questions yet? And, internal auditor, will you elaborate, internal auditor?
Those were the original questions at the beginning of the COVID pandemic.
Right, that's about 3 months.
I believe.
That was about
I believe,
right? A couple months ago?
I think it was April 5th, and a follow-up on April 8th.
Yep, so do you know when we're going to get the answers to those questions, Mr. Director?
Sorry, I'm going to have to look into those emails and get back to you on that.
So when you get back to internal auditor, I'll kind of get those questions answered. Part of this process is directives coming before the committee into the public, explaining what they've been doing for the past year, and then what they want to do in the upcoming year. And they're asking the council for money, right? I mean, you and the mayor's office may come up with your grand plan, but where you guys can't fund yourself. You're not self-funding, right? So it's up to the director heads to convince this committee and the council that the job they're doing has value, and that if you're looking for expansion of that job, what am I getting for that value, right? And I think what happens, I think the directors don't really understand that connection. I think they think, oh, with the council, I don't think that we completely fund you, completely. And what concerns me is I'm not getting a huge level of comfort during this whole process of the past 3 months of what's been going on with HR and the city and how it's been handling its personnel issues. Nor do I get a comfort of what's going to happen tomorrow in the future, since we have no schedule, no plans. That gives me great concern. Right? So I want you to know where I'm coming from. I need you, the director, to alleviate my concerns and raise my level of comfort. I need you to reach out to the internal auditor the next few days, get those questions answered, and to see if you can alleviate my concerns and raise my level of comfort to justify what's happening. Okay? It's important. And then why we should give you additional funding for, I still don't really know what. Okay? And I'm not being flippant or in this matter. It's like I said, it's that director speak that I've been hearing over the decades that I've been at the side of the table. And it's very good, by the way. They're very good. Everybody's very good at it. I said, Chief Taylor, you had a question, sir?
Yes, a couple. I guess, okay, so departments are starting to come back slowly. Do we have a plan? Example, water supply came back. A lot of the members came back today. They were all lined up on Niantic Avenue, because it's in my ward. And before they get in, their temperatures were taken to make sure they don't have a temperature. Talked to other department heads after I saw this. I thought that's a great thing to be doing. Other department heads have no tools to do that. What is our plan for public works or sewer or parks, or what are their plans to make sure that they obviously don't have a temperature going into work?
Yeah, so I don't want to answer procedurally what we're doing to obtain materials, but I'll answer what we're planning on doing. So what we're planning on doing is having the same temperature screenings, similar to what Water Supply Board has in our public buildings where employees are entering. There's a lot of nuance to the policy that goes around how to take those temperatures and how to determine whether or not an employee is asked to leave or not leave. So we're looking into the nuance with that. Additionally, we're looking at things like, and I think you might have seen them in City Hall if you've been in City Hall, hand sanitizer stations throughout the building. We're going to develop policies around how breaks will be taken by employees. Some of the customer facing offices are going to be, or all of the customer facing offices will be retrofitted with plexiglass barriers to ensure that if the public are coming in, there's a physical barrier, decreasing the risk of contamination. We have, like I said, we're collecting a list of what PPE every department needs so that we can disseminate all of that. And I increase the number of departments that I talk to week after week to think about how do we get more people telecommuting, what equipment challenges do we have, and then operationally, what we need to do to get our offices ready for staff's return.
So so City Hall opens June 5th. That's supposedly. Is that City Hall going to have all that stuff in place? But June 5th?
I mean, we will have the stuff in place when we open. I don't know what the reopening date is going to be at this point, sir.
Okay, so here's my question that I don't get. We know that let's say June 5th is the day it's open. I was expecting you to say, yes, it's all ready to go right now, because what have we been doing for 3 months? We got to open at some point in time. So using June 5th as that date, obviously, with that answer you just gave me, June 5th might not be the opening date. But I know the sanitizer's there. I've seen it. I've been to City Hall. But I haven't been to other places to see if the glass and all that other stuff is in the different departments. So that was my question, that I don't understand why. I guess that's part of the plan. Why there's no plan?
Chief, so it's got to do with there is no plan. There is no schedule. Although they're still in discussions. That's what it sounds like. Is that right, Mr. Director? You're still in discussions of what the plan is going to be?
We are in ongoing discussions about how to open City Hall, yes.
They're still in discussion. So that's going to be like, so I guess the question is that, should the council continue to fund your discussion? That's really the question that should be posed to you all. If your plan is to continue discussions until, August, September, October, well then your budget needs to reflect the fact that you're going to be in discussions for the next 3 or 4 months. Right, Director? Not just your budget, but everybody's budget. Right, Director?
I'm not sure what you're asking, sir.
Well, if you're just going to continue being discussions and you don't know when City Hall is going to be open and no one knows when. So usually this is how it works. There's a plan put together. There is a date that we want to do, want to try to achieve. And then everybody works towards that date and trying to, get all the moving pieces together so it works so you can open up. At this date right now, Director, have you been informed of any date when the City of Providence, let's use City Hall, any departments will be open? Have you been informed of any date yet? Director?
What I work on is trying to make sure employees are outfitted.
Have you been informed of any date of when City Hall will be open?
I've not been informed of any date when all those improvements
That's
will
fine.
be made.
That's a good answer, right? All right, so that's still in discussions, correct? At this time? Okay. Chief, does that,
that doesn't, yeah. My other question I had was, how many people working have come down with the coronavirus? Do you have that number?
Director?
Police, fire, DPW, parks. How many people actually came down with the coronavirus?
That's not information that I readily have available.
Well, who would have that? Each department head? I mean, I would think that it goes to you because it's going to go into workman's comp or it's going to go into something.
So if folks have applied for FMLA, we have that information. That information is HIPAA protected, and I cannot.
I understand that, but I'm trying to figure out how many people actually. So there's only probably 25% of the people that have been working in the last 3 months. Out of that 25%, how many people got? Because we know 75% of them have been home. So the 25% that are working, what's the percentage that have gotten the coronavirus?
That I don't know right now.
So I just want to clarify one thing. City solicitor, are you on the line, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I want to make sure, the director mentioned HIPAA. I have a question. Would it be a HIPAA violation for the city to report on the percentage of, like, I understand they can't report the names and the person and maybe the position, but could the city say, for example, if we have 3,000 employees, 5 of them or a quarter of a percent were tested with COVID blank, or all were tested, would that be a HIPAA violation?
I don't.
That generality?
Without looking, I don't believe providing a general number, but I think it may be difficult if HR doesn't even have that information. If an employee's been out sick and never provided the information to the city, or they didn't avail themselves to FMLA or one of the various other issues available to them through the coronavirus legislation. So if they have it in a general term, they can provide basic numbers, but not specific.
So Director, you can provide the basic numbers. I just want to clarify that. Chief, you have a follow-up, and Councilwoman Anthony.
Well, yeah, I wanted to elaborate a little that if someone had the coronavirus, then they have to be quarantined for 14 days. So if they were working in whatever department, they would have to notify either their director, who would in turn I would think notify Human Resources, that person has to be quarantined for 14 days, and probably everybody else who is working in that, if they're working in a close range with people, if you're in parks and you're in the same truck or whatever. So I think the number's there. I don't know why. I mean, I know police and fire have been reading in the paper how many policemen have it, how many fire people have it. So I don't know why the rest of the city, we're only talking probably 25%, because the rest of them, everybody's sitting at home. And also, what's going on with...
Chief, hang on. Director, do you have that information?
That's information that I have and I can compile. I apologize. I thought we were asking about specific cases. So that's something that I can compile. Data citywide.
Thank you, Chief, continue,
I guess the other question was that I've heard from some department heads that if they call the people, now they're not answering phones because they're home or, whatever. They've been off for 16, 15, 4, 8, 12, 11 weeks. And now when they get called at home, they're not picking up the phone. There's no way to contact them. Do you know about that? And if so, is there any discipline? How do we get these people back to work?
Yeah, so when that has happened, we have tried to contact the employees. We've contacted the union to try to determine if they can contact the employees. Disciplinary action, although is confidential due to personnel records. We have conducted disciplinary hearings even remotely for instances where employees have been breaking either policies or procedures. But yes, I am fully aware of those instances. Department directors reach out to me and my staff on that, and we work with the union to resolve those matters and make sure people are answering and reporting to work when they should, or they're being docked pay.
And if, like, say, because I know in the police and fire it's different, but say they are home or doing whatever and they're not answering for 12 weeks, they're off. Are they working a part-time job? Do we know this? How does that work? Like, say I got a landscaping company and I work for whatever, Department of Public Works. I'm not answering my phone, but I'm out mowing lawns.
So if employees are called to work and they do not report to work, they either have to discharge time with a justification, or if they are refusing to report to work, they are being docked. I'm not sure what employees are working outside of the city or if anyone is doing any side work, but what I do know is this, that if we call an employee to work and they're unable to work, they have to discharge time or they will be docked and disciplined.
Okay. And that's the people that are being called back in any department, right?
Correct.
Even including City Hall?
Correct.
Okay. No more questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I get to Councilman Anthony, very quickly, I just want to let my committee members, public know, we're going to try, we're putting something new on. I noticed when the public, what do you call it, is on, attendees of these committee meetings, I want to be able to give them an opportunity to at least submit a question, and then we'll do our part to get it answered, either at the time or at a later date. So the clerk was going to be now putting a notice on my meeting notice, on the Zoom interaction, I think that's what it's called, where it'll have is it there, people can see it, and it'll allow you to email the clerk with questions, and then the goal will be that we're going to try to get those questions answered. I asked the public to be patient with us because we're trying something new, but I thought it was important in order to expand this democratic process and this republic, to give the public an opportunity to weigh in. We'll ask a question, and then we'll try to get it answered, and potentially sometimes at real time. So we'll see how this will evolve. We may even have at a point where I'll notify it in the committee where we will take questions from the public, and we will try to answer a few if we can live, but we'll get there. So if you can see it on there, Mr. Clerk, did you post it? Yeah. All right. And committee members, do you see the posting? Can you see it?
Sir. Yes.
Right.
I do see it, yes.
We're going to try something new to further expand our public process, and I want everybody to get an opportunity, and then any feedback on it. With that, Councilwoman Anthony, and we'll go from there.
Yes, I would just like to say thank you to the director for making sure that he's trying to keep our city employees safe when they return to the city hall. I know that people are pushing dates, but we have to keep in mind that there are certain segments of our city that very recently were testing 40% positive in some of our health centers. We in Providence are different from the rest of the state in terms of reopening because we have some significant outbreaks of the COVID virus, and I just don't want to be insensitive to that fact. So I appreciate the fact that the director and the rest of the city staff is trying to make sure that our employees are safe and protected when they return to City Hall. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Director, I presume you'd like to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Anthony. Yeah, that's one of the challenges with something as nimble as a public health event, that we don't know how it's going to ebb and flow. And you're right, we have seen some of the testing data for Providence, and it is alarming. So what we're trying to do is limit the exposure to the public by not trying to get too much traffic in buildings such as City Hall without making sure, and it's also a historical building, which we have to be mindful of how we retrofit that, but retrofitting it so that it's safe and that employee and public interactions are limited to a short time span, and we can get the public in and out quickly.
Great. So it's kind of getting late. It's getting late in the hour. It's quarter past 8. So what I'm going to ask the committee is that to indulge let's continue this further discussion the next finance meeting, and we're going to have to continue MRSA. It's just getting very late, and also I want to just make another note to the public and to my council colleagues that email your question, and then we'll do our part to try to get those answered. All right, and then
motion to continue.
Motion to continue second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Directors, thank you all. We're going to bring you back to the next finance meeting, as well as the previous director, and we'll go from there. Thank you all for participating in this great republic, and be safe and be well. Madam, besides the motorcycle, Councilwoman Castillo, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
And my Councilman Taylor, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for participating.